Hi everyone. I'm Xiao Kui from Susan's family. Today, I'll teach you the knitting method for a color rhythm hooded jacket. Let's get started. This sweater is divided into two parts, the main body and accessories. The main body is made by sewing together 3 different fabric pieces. First, use straight needles to knit the fabric pieces. Then, connect them with a crochet hook. After that, sew on the zipper and pocket lining at the corresponding positions. Finally, attach the buttons. This sweater comes in 2 sizes. You can achieve the different sizes by changing the needle size. The knitting method is the same for both sizes. Refer to the corresponding chart for the needle size based on the size. Let's start with learning how to knit the main part. Fabric piece 1 is a rectangular piece. Some of piece 1 needs to have buttonholes knitted into it. Piece 2 is the shoulder piece. Piece 3 is the main part of the sleeve. The fabric piece varies due to different stitch counts, row numbers, and color schemes. Each fabric piece has been labeled with a number. Let's start by learning how to knit fabric piece 1. Here, I will explain using piece number 1 as an example. Let's take a look at the chart. A horizontal line in the chart represents a purl stitch. A vertical line represents a knit stitch, to make the picture less dense. The blank squares in the chart also represent knit stitches. The chart shows alternating knit and purl stitches. Every 2 rows, the positions of the knit and purl stitches are swapped. This is the moss stitch pattern. The piece is worked back and forth. On the wrong side, you need to work the opposite stitch. The stitch techniques used also include bind off, K2 tog, yarn over, slip stitch. Now, please watch as I demonstrate the specific knitting method. First, cast on. Here, we use cable cast on stitches. To make it easier for everyone to see clearly, I'll demonstrate with cotton yarn. Random colors. For specific yarn, color schemes, and needle sizes, please refer to the detail page of our product and the paper instructions. Since the fabric piece has a large number of stitches, we will directly use the circular needle for knitting. Before knitting, let's get to know the circular needle first. It connects 2 straight needles in the middle. It's more convenient to use. Make a slip knot with the yarn tail. Leave the tail of the knot a bit longer, making it easier to weave in the ends later. Pick up one side of the circular needle with your left hand. Insert the hook into the loop and slightly tighten it. This is the first stitch. This stitch will be a knit stitch. Hold the other side of the circular needle with your right hand in a pencil grip. Then wrap the yarn tail around your right pinky finger once. Gently pinch the yarn with your ring finger and middle finger. Place the yarn between your index finger and middle finger. This is the proper posture for holding the needles. Next, place the right needle above the thread. Go from top to bottom. Insert the left needle into the loop. Use your right index finger to bring the yarn. Yarn over. Pull it through. Slip it onto the left needle. Don't pull the yarn too tight. Otherwise, it will be hard to pick up stitches later. This is the second stitch. Then place the right needle above the thread again. Go from top to bottom. Insert between these two stitches. Yarn over. Pull it through. Slip it onto the left needle. This is the third stitch. Continue casting on. Place the right needle above the yarn again. Go from top to bottom. Insert between the two loops on the left needle. Yarn over. Pick up. Place it on the left needle. This is the fourth stitch. Always insert between two loops. Knit the stitch. Repeat this process. Cast on all the required stitches. Here, I'm demonstrating with a sample swatch. The number of stitches is random. Refer to the chart for the exact cast on number. Six, 7. 8. 9. 'Everyone, take a look. This is what it looks like after completing the cast on. The cast on doesn't count as a row. Now we start knitting the first row. This row is the right side. The first stitch has a vertical symbol. It indicates a knit stitch. Start with the first stitch. Insert the straight needle from top to bottom. Pick into the first loop. Note that you insert it into the loop, not between two loops. Yarn over and draw through. At the same time, release the loop on the left needle. One knit stitch is now complete. The second stitch has a horizontal symbol. It indicates a purl stitch. First, wrap the yarn above the right needle. Then take the right needle. Insert it upwards from below into the loop on the left needle. Yarn over and draw through. Release the loop. One purl stitch is now complete. Continue with a knit stitch. First, wrap the yarn back below the right needle. Insert downwards from above into the loop. Yarn over and draw through. Release the loop. One knit stitch is now done. The braid below is the texture of knit stitches. Then work a purl stitch. Don't forget to wrap the yarn above the right needle. Next, insert upwards from below into the loop. Yarn over and draw through. Release the loop. One purl stitch is now done. After completing it, let's take a look. The purl stitch creates a tile-shaped texture. There's a line running across the top. This row consists of one knit stitch and one purl stitch. Alternately worked. Remember to yarn over before each stitch. Otherwise, you'll end up with extra stitches. Continue following this pattern. And finish the row. If the last loop is too large, you can gently tighten the starting tail. Now the first row is complete. Let's move on to the second row. Turn the fabric over. In the chart, this row starts from left to right. The chart shows the texture of the right side of the fabric. So in practice, you need to work the opposite stitch. The first symbol in the chart is an underline V shape, which means slip stitch purlwise. Here, you'll work a slip stitch knitwise instead. Hang the yarn end with your right hand. Pick up the next stitch without working it, as if to knit. Move from top to bottom. Pick up the first stitch. That completes one slip stitch. The second stitch is a knit symbol. Work the opposite stitch. In this case, purl it. The third stitch is a purl symbol. Work the opposite stitch instead. That means knit the stitch. Besides referring to the chart, you can also follow the texture of the piece. If the next stitch looks like a tile unit, purl it. If it looks like a braid, knit it. Continue alternating between purl and knit stitches. Finish this row. You can see that the second row has ended. Now move on to the third row. Turn the work piece. This row is worked on the right side. The chart is read from right to left. The first stitch is a V-shaped symbol. It indicates slipping a stitch knitwise. From top to bottom. Pick up the first stitch. One slip stitch is now complete. Move on to the second stitch. The chart shows the symbol for a knit stitch. Knit the stitch. Then work the third stitch. The chart shows the symbol for a purl stitch. Purl the stitch. You can see that this row is still alternating between one knit stitch and one purl stitch. It's just that the texture is different from the previous row. Continue working downward until there is only one loop left on the left needle. Refer to the chart. Work the last stitch as a purl stitch. The third row is finished. Continue with the fourth row. Work this row on the wrong side. Stitch the opposite of what's shown in the chart. Or follow the texture from the previous row. Slip the first stitch. Keep working downward until there is only one loop left on the left needle. Refer to the chart. Work the last stitch as a purl stitch. The fourth row is now complete. Turn the piece to the right side. You will notice that the moss stitch is formed by alternating one knit stitch and one purl stitch, and switching the position of knit and purl every 2 rows. The texture is identical on both the right and wrong sides. The right side is when the starting yarn tail is on the left-hand side. The technique for the rest of the knitting remains the same. Regardless of the right or wrong side, slip the first stitch of every row as if to knit. The last stitch of each row is a purl stitch. For all other stitches, on the right side, follow the pattern chart, or refer to the texture of the previous row, and knit the opposite stitch. On the wrong side, knit the same stitch based on the texture of the previous row. Continue knitting until the row before the buttonhole row. End from the wrong side. The method is relatively simple. Everyone can finish them on their own. I won't demonstrate it. Next, I'll teach you how to count the rows. Count from the right side. Find the 2 braids at the bottom of the fabric surface. One braid represents 1 row. Above them are 2 tile units. A tile unit also represents a row. Count how many braids and tile units are in this column. Start counting from the bottommost braid. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are a total of 10 braids and tile units. The loops on the straight needle don't count as a row. This means you've knitted 10 rows so far. This is how you count the rows. Next, I'll demonstrate the buttonhole technique using a sample swatch. Buttonholes are always knitted on the right side. First, follow the pattern chart to knit until there are 8 loops left on the left needle. Then, the symbol on the chart is in the shape of a Chinese character person, which means to Pt2 tog. Use the right needle to work in knitwise, and insert it from top to bottom through the 2 loops on the left needle. Yarn over, and draw the yarn through. Release the loop, and you have completed the Pt2 tog. At this point, the fabric piece has 1 less loop. We need to increase 1 loop now. Following the chart, there is a circle symbol after that, which indicates a yarn over. First, wrap the yarn to the top of the needle. Then from front to back, place it onto the right needle. This adds 1 loop on the right needle. This loop is the result of the yarn over. The next loop on the left needle has a knit stitch texture. Here you need to work a purl stitch. Wrap the yarn to the top. Then continue working the corresponding stitches downward until the end of the row. Once completed, turn the fabric piece over. First, follow the chart to work the first 6 stitches. Next is a loop hanging on the needle. Work the corresponding stitches according to the chart. Here you will work a purl stitch. You can see that below the stitch there is a space. That's the buttonhole. Continue to follow the chart and finish the rest of the row. This is how you knit a buttonhole. Use this same method for all subsequent buttonholes. I will not repeat the demonstration. When you're knitting, you might encounter situations where the yarn tail isn't long enough, and you need to join a new yarn. I'll demonstrate the method for joining yarn. Take this yarn tail and the end of the new yarn. And tie a secure knot. Leave about 5 centimeters or so for both yarn tails. In practice, whether you're joining on the right side or the wrong side, Always make sure that the two yarn tails are placed on the wrong side of the fabric piece. Then continue knitting the corresponding stitches. For any future instances of joining yarn, you can follow this same method. I won't go over it again. I'll continue using this swatch to demonstrate the method for binding off. Here, we need to bind off on the wrong side of the fabric piece. This involves binding off purlwise. Start by working one slip stitch. Then one purl stitch. After completing, pick up the previous stitch with the left needle. Cover the next stitch. That's how you bind off one stitch. Continue by working one purl stitch. Then pick up the previous stitch with the left needle. Cover the next stitch again. That's another stitch bound off. Following this method, keep working the purl stitches, while binding off all the loops on the left needle one by one. Now there is only one loop left. Simply stretch the loop. Slip the needle off. Then leave a tail and fasten off the yarn. Pass the yarn tail through the loop. Tighten it. That's how you finish binding off. The rest of the knitting methods for piece 1 are identical. For specific cast-on numbers, row counts, the color schemes, the quantity of pieces and buttonhole positions, refer to the chart instructions. I will not repeat the demonstration. After completing piece 1, move on to piece 2. Let's take a look at the finished product. Piece 2 is divided into section 1 and section 2. I'll explain using piece 3 as an example. Please watch me demonstrate the specific method. The method for section 1 is identical to the method used for piece 1 without buttonholes. Everyone can follow the printed chart to finish it on your own. I won't demonstrate it again. Next, I'll use this sample to demonstrate the method for section 2. First, refer to the chart and continue knitting. Stop when there are 3 loops left on the left needle. Do not knit these last 3 loops. That completes the first row. Then start the second row. Place a stitch marker on the right needle as a mark. If you don't have a stitch marker, use a safety pin instead. The first loop on the left needle will be in purl texture. We slip this loop purlwise. The next loops on the left needle will be in knit texture. At this point, the yarn tail is above the fabric piece. Slightly tighten the yarn tail. Directly insert the right needle into the loop on the left needle. Knit a knit stitch. You can see that there is an extra strand of yarn on the left side of the stitch marker on the right needle. It forms a knot. We call this a double stitch. Continue downward, finish knitting the remaining loops in this row. The second row is now complete. Next, we'll knit the third row. Knit downward until there are 3 stitches remaining before the stitch marker. The double stitch counts as 1 stitch. Be mindful not to count it incorrectly. I won't remind you about this again going forward. The third row is now complete. Let's continue with the fourth row. Move the stitch marker to the right needle. As if knitting a purl stitch. Slip the first loop on the left needle without knitting it. No need to move the yarn tail. Slightly tighten the yarn tail. Directly insert the right needle into the loop on the left needle. Knit a knit stitch. Continue knitting this row until you finish it. The fourth row is now complete. Everyone repeat this process. Refer to the chart, and keep knitting until the second to last row is finished. I won't continue demonstrating beyond this point. Now let's knit the last row. This row is knitted on the right side. Refer to the chart and knit the corresponding stitches. When you encounter a double stitch, insert the right needle into these 2 strands and knit the corresponding stitch. Remove the stitch marker. Continue knitting downward. The last row is now complete. Now it's time to bind off. The binding off method for piece 2 is identical to that of piece 1. Continue binding off downward. After binding off the corresponding loops, place a stitch marker on this loop located below the right side of the fabric piece. The position for the stitch marker is indicated on the chart. Then continue binding off the rest of this row. This is what piece 2 looks like when it's finished. Finally, we will crochet piece 3. Let's take a look at the finished product. Piece 3 is divided into 3 sections. Section 1, increasing section. Section 2, even section. Section 3, double stitch to form an arc. The new stitch technique used here is K1 TBL. Below, please watch me demonstrate the specific knitting method. First, we will knit section 1. The method for the first few rows is pretty simple, so I won't demonstrate them. I'll use this small sample to demonstrate the first increase. All increases are done on the right side. First, make a slip stitch. Then, create a K1 TBL. Insert the left needle from front to back between the strands of 2 stitches. That's this single thread here. The right needle is inserted the strand behind the picked up loop. Knit a stitch. That completes 1 K1 TBL. You can see that the loop below this one is twisted. Next, continue to follow the pattern chart while knitting, until there is only one loop remaining on the left needle. Then, make another K1 TBL. Insert the left needle from front to back between the strands of 2 stitches. The right needle is inserted the strand behind the picked up loop. Knit the stitch. That completes 1 K1 TBL. The last stitch is a purl stitch. The first increase is now done. After this, increases will be made at certain row intervals. Each time, 1 stitch is added at both the beginning and end of the piece. The exact number of increases is marked on the chart. Everyone can finish it by referring to the pattern. I won't demonstrate it further. After section 1 is completed, then move on to section 2. Section 2 is worked even in the moss stitch. The method is relatively simple, so I won't demonstrate it. Next, work section 3. I'll continue demonstrating with this sample. Follow the chart to keep knitting. Stop when there are 5 loops left on the left needle. Do not work these last 5 loops. That completes the first row. Then work the second row. Place a stitch marker on the right needle as a mark. At this point, the first loop on the left needle shows a knit texture. First, bring the yarn to the top of the fabric piece. Then slip this loop without working it by purling. Pull the yarn tail tight behind the fabric piece. Now, the loops on the left needle show a purl texture, and the yarn is below the fabric piece. Move the yarn. Continue working according to the texture until there are 5 stitches left on the left needle. Do not work these last 5 stitches. The second row is now complete. Start working the third row. Place a stitch marker on the right needle. First, move the yarn to the top of the fabric piece. Then slip the first loop on the left needle as if to purl, without working it. There's no need to move the yarn. Slightly tighten the yarn tail. Refer to the chart. Work a knit stitch. Continue working downward until there are 5 stitches left before the stitch marker. The third row is now finished. The following method is identical to the previous one. Turn your work and move the stitch marker. Work the first stitch as a double stitch. Then follow the chart until there are 5 stitches left before the stitch marker. Everyone can finish the second to last row on their own. I won't demonstrate it anymore. Now let's work on the last row. This row is worked on the right side. Remove the stitch marker. Turn your work. Work the first stitch as a double stitch. Then follow the chart for the rest. The last row is now complete. Next, we will bind off. The method is the same as bind off purlwise technique used earlier. Pay attention when you reach the double stitch on this side. Pick up 2 loops at once. The method is quite simple, so I won't demonstrate it. Everyone can refer to the pattern to complete piece 3 on their own. With that, the fabric piece is now finished. Next, we'll crochet the edging in the appropriate positions of the piece. The stitches used will include single crochets, chain stitches, slip stitches. The method and position for picking up stitches on different edges of the piece vary slightly. Below, please watch as I demonstrate the specific crocheting method. For piece 1, all work is done on the right side. Crochet the edging counterclockwise along the side edge. When crocheting the edging, the bound-off edge should face upward. Here, I'll explain using piece 1 number 6 as an example. All 4 edges of number 6 need to be crocheted with the border. I'll demonstrate using a small sample. Make a loose knot with the yarn tail. Wrap the yarn once around the left little finger. Pass it through between the middle finger and index finger. Then, pinch the knot position with the thumb and middle finger. Pick up the crochet hook with your right hand. Move the hook back and forth between these 2 points. Take out the fabric piece, the right side facing towards you. The bound-off edge should face upward. Place the left-hand yarn tail behind the farthest right side of the workpiece's bound-off edge. Hold the fabric piece and yarn tail with your left hand. Insert the hook into the braid-like texture on the farthest right side of the bound-off edge. Then insert it into the knotted loop. Draw the loop through. Adjust the size of the loop. Do not let the knotted part come out of the fabric piece. Work a chain stitch below. Yarn over and pull through. One chain stitch is done. This chain stitch serves as the beginning chain for the single crochet. Then work 1 single crochet into the same stitch. Insert the hook into the position where the chain stitch is located. Place the 2 yarn tails at the back on top of the hook. Weave them in while working the single crochet. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. Now there are 2 loops on the hook. yarn over again, and draw through in once. That's how you make one single crochet. It should correspond to the V-shaped braid on the upper, right? This is the stitch of a single crochet. Mark the stitch. Move on to make one chain stitch. Yarn over, draw the yarn through. One chain stitch is done. After it's completed, skip one braid. Insert into the second braid on the left side that's adjacent. Crochet one single stitch. Yarn over. Pull the yarn through. Yarn over again. Draw through both loops on the hook. The second single crochet is done. Work one chain stitch below. Skip one braid. Crochet one single crochet from the second braid on the left. One chain stitch. The edge where you bind off is worked by alternating between one single crochet and one chain stitch. Skip one braid between two single crochets. Work all the way down to finish this edge. The last single crochet goes into the second column of braids on the left. After completing, crochet two chain stitches. Rotate the piece. The slip stitch edge on the left should be facing up. Then pick up the slip stitch loop from the far right. Crochet one single crochet. One chain stitch. Then, insert the hook into the crossing point of the two adjacent slip stitch loops on the left. Crochet one single crochet. One chain stitch. At the slip stitch edge, alternately insert into one slip stitch loop and the crossing point of two adjacent slip stitch loops. Work single crochets. Between every two single crochets, crochet one chain stitch. I won't repeat the explanation. Continue crocheting all the way down to finish this edge. Since the number of rows in the piece 1 may vary, the last single crochet might be worked into the last slip stitch. or between the last 2 slip stitches. Just crochet according to the actual situation. The position of the swatch is random. Next, crochet 2 chain stitches. Rotate the piece. The beginning edge should face up. Insert the hook into the center of the purl stitch texture closest to the edge on the far right. Work a single crochet. Then make 1 chain stitch. While crocheting the edging, if you encounter yarn tails on the piece, don't forget to weave them in. The insertion point for the single crochets on this side is always the center of the purl stitch texture near the edge. The number of single crochets on the cast-on edge and the bind-off edge is identical. Check the stitch count as you go. This will help prevent crocheting into the wrong stitch. Continue down to finish crocheting this side. After completing it, chain 2 stitches. Rotate the piece. You'll come to the slip stitch edge again. The edging technique here is the same as the one used on the other slip stitch edge. The number of single crochets on both top and bottom sides are the same. Pay attention to checking the stitch count while crocheting. Finally, crochet 2 chain stitches. Then insert into the first single crochet stitch. That is, the stitch marker position. Crochet a slip stitch. Insert. Yarn over. Draw the yarn through. And draw through all loops on your hook. The braid next to it is the slip stitch. Pull the slip stitch tight. Then make a chain to secure. Leave about 5 centimeters of yarn tail. Cut off. The edging is now complete. I want to emphasize again. When crocheting, the number of single crochet stitches on corresponding sides should be identical. At each corner, crochet 2 chain stitches. You need to check as you work to avoid mistakes. Now, let's weave in the ends. Turn the piece to the wrong side. Weave in the yarn tail following the texture of the fabric. Trim any excess yarn tails. The edging for number 6 is now complete. When crocheting around the edges of other piece ones, it's similar to number 6. Some pieces don't require crocheting in rounds. The crocheting direction is always counterclockwise along the edge of the fabric. Before starting, make sure the right side of the piece faces you. The bound-off edge should be facing up. The starting point for crocheting varies depending on the position. There are 3 cases in total. For pieces that start from the top right corner, the first stitch is the same as the entry position for crocheting in rounds. For pieces that start from the bottom right corner, the first stitch picks up the slip stitch at the bottom. For pieces that start from the bottom left corner, insert the hook into the rightmost slip stitch of the starting edge, and make a beginning chain. Work a single crochet in the adjacent position. The second single crochet goes into the center of the second tile texture from the left. The crocheting method is the same for all subsequent steps. For the last single crochet of the final edge, make sure to crochet close to the edge. After completing, cut the yarn directly. Follow this method, and refer to the chart to add edging to all fabric piece ones except piece number 4. I won't demonstrate that here. Now let's learn how to crochet the edging for the pocket. Let's take a look at the finished product. This sweater has 2 pockets in total. One of the pockets is made using 2 piece number 4s. The other one reserves an opening position during joining. Here, I'll use a sample swatch to demonstrate the edging technique for the pocket pieces. Take out the 2 pieces. Crochet single crochets along the bind-off edge of one piece. The method is the same as explained before. I've already finished this part in advance. Next, crochet a chain stitch to secure. Leave a tail and cut the yarn. Tighten it. The edging for this piece is now complete. Next, edge the second piece. While crocheting, connect it to the first piece. First, finish crocheting along the bind-off edge. When crocheting the last single crochet stitch, insert the hook and draw the yarn through the loop. Then take the first piece. Place it behind. Align the edges. Insert the hook into the last single crochet stitch of the back piece. Yarn over and draw through. Pull through all loops. After completing, crochet 2 chain stitches. Then move on to crochet the remaining 3 edges. The insertion point is the same as before. Just need to insert the hook through the corresponding positions of both the top and bottom fabric pieces at the same time. When crocheting along the cast-on side, make sure not to miss any spots. Continue crocheting all the way down. After crocheting the last 2 chain stitches, insert your hook into the first single crochet stitch of both fabric pieces. Finish with a slip stitch. Cut the yarn. The edging for the pocket piece is now complete. Tuck in the yarn tails using the same method as before. I won't demonstrate this part in detail. Next, we'll add the border to piece 2. There are 2 piece 2's that should have the wrong sides facing out. I'll explain using this swatch. Place the wrong side of the piece facing you. When crocheting on the wrong side, the insertion point for the single crochet is exactly the same as when working on the right side. When you reach a stitch marker on the piece, leave the stitch marker in place. Follow the chart to crochet the corresponding edges by yourself. I won't demonstrate this part. Finally, we'll add the border to piece 3. Let's take a look at the finished product. The method for crocheting the border on piece 3 is as follows. It's exactly the same as piece 1. I won't demonstrate it. Up to this point, the edging for all pieces has been fully explained.